So there's a possible small rules teaser that could hint at the Space Wolves Codex trying to have future compatibility with Leman and Russ. The Leagues of Votann have had their combat patrol disappearing from the first location around the world, and I've heard some rumours of a new updated one, and let's see what went on with Games Workshop's Skulls preview, including the Dawn of War announcement. Hello and welcome back to Auspex Tactics, where today we're doing another roundup of Warhammer 40k news and reveals. This one basically talking through a whole bunch of small video topics that I thought were interesting enough to mention on the channel, but not really quite so big that they needed a video all to themselves. Very quick roundup of things to cover today. There's a Space Wolf Codex teaser that I did mention in the main book review, but might well hint at the return of Leman Russ with a plastic model for 40k. The Leagues of Votann Combat Patrol box set seems to be off sale online in the UK, and I've seen some rumours of the next one. Games Workshop's had their 40k video game reveal, a 1-hour stream and showcase called Skulls, so I thought I'd talk through the contents, including the new Dawn of War Remaster. I thought this would be a good place to mention a correction from my Space Wolves video regarding one of the detachments that I'd dismissed that seems to be a lot more powerful than I'd thought. There's Disintegration weapons showcased on the Horus Heresy, plus a couple of other things including a Rumour Engine and Grey Tide sale. Let's jump straight into it though, with the possibility of Primal returns, and this maybe feels like a little bit of deja vu from 9th edition. In 9th edition we had Lionel Johnson return to the game, and before he turned up there did seem to be a few keywords and rules around the Arcs of Omen and boarding actions that kind of implies that we'd be getting a new and mysterious Primal model, as some of the rules have been written to take into account of things that weren't infantry. In general, if there is to be another Loyalist Primarch in 10th edition, which seems fairly likely given that Games Workshop really like to sell Primarchs at us, Leman Russ was probably already the best bet, given that he's the other Primarch that's got an entire range to support him, and in particular Games Workshop have just redone the Space Wolf range in really quite a big way, so it definitely feels like it's got some parallels with the Dark Angels. For them we had the line return and then their big range refresh. If they do go for another Loyalist Primarch in the End Edition campaign, then this time around I guess it will be the Space Wolf refresh this year, and then the return of Leman Russ coming back next year. Whenever I've covered his in videos on the channel, people suspect that he is the likeliest to come back for those reasons, plus just being kind of lost and have gone away and not really said where he's gone. So it would be pretty easy narrative-wise for him to turn up again. And even if that's certainly true of the rest of the Loyalist Primarchs, given that the Space Wolves have an entire army range and lots of dedicated collectors, maybe a few more so than things like Salamanders, Imperial Fists or White Scars, unless they surprise us, he's probably coming first. In any case, the small potential clue from the Saga of the Hunter detachment for Codex Space Wolves is a stratagem that gives you boosts to your pile-in and consolidation moves, making both of those go up to 6 inches, which could help you get to grips with the enemy in melee. But the interesting thing that it excludes is that it says it doesn't work on Space Wolves monster and vehicle units, which definitely raises eyebrows given that there's no current Space Wolf monster units out there. It'd maybe be kind of similar to the Tyranids having a stratagem that excluding you targeting friendly vehicle models when they don't have any. In 10th edition Primarchs have the monster keyword, Rebute Gilliman and Lionel Johnson both have those, even if they do have supporting rules that allow them still to interact with terrain a bit more normally like infantry. So there's definitely a possibility that this could be teasing the fact that Leman Russ is going to get a model and rules later in the edition, and of all things they didn't want him piling in and consolidating more than normal. It's definitely far from guaranteed, of course. Could just be some overly completist rules writing, but just given the context of a big Space Wolf refresh, and Lionel Johnson having come back in a late edition campaign last time around, it'd certainly tie in well with Leman Russ getting a monster keyword miniature in 10th. Definitely has similarities with keywords maybe hinting at the line's return in any case. Next up, it looks like days are numbered for the Leagues of Votann Combat Patrol box. Thanks to the person who pointed this one out to me recently on Discord. It looks like the box set has gone missing from the UK and EU web store, but is still up for sale in the USA and in Australia. There does seem to have been a bit of a trend recently of box sets that are getting retired being taken down in the UK and EU before other places for some reason. Previously, if you search this and click through to a link on it, it'd give you a 404 error on the UK and EU web store. Though now that I've just checked it again while making the video, it looks like the actual listing is back, but it is marked as sold out online, which Games Workshop usually uses when something is going away and not coming back. The Codex is scheduled to come out later this year. Looks like it's timetabled for after Grey Knights and Black Templars and the Imperial and Chaos Knight Codexes. I'd guess probably sometime in the sort of equivalent slot to what they had in the 9th edition release, maybe around about September time. I'd guess the other nightly related codexes will probably cover us over summer, and around the same time as Votann looks like we're getting some sort of big Space Marine release focusing on a bunch of chapters. The current Combat Patrol box set was generally considered an alright one. It's got the core HQ in a car, the core troops in the Hearthkin Warriors, the Chthonian Berserks with the great big axes, and then some Hernkin Pioneer jet trikes. It's a pretty helpful collection of units for jumping into an army, and you could easily get 2 of them if you're building up a wider Votann force. You can build one of the Carls as Uthar the Destined, so I'd perhaps treat this as a bit of a heads up and last chance to buy, as they won't be around all that longer Element Games still has them in the UK, even if Games Workshop's not selling them. They're linked down in the video description if you wanted to pick one up and support the channel through affiliate sales while doing so. I'm sure plenty of other discount retailers will still have them, and a good chance they'll be around in the USA and Australia for a bit longer, though at some point they're going to get taken down and not come back. As mentioned, I had seen a rumour for what they might be getting next, and that's a box set with an Ironhair Champion leader, one set of 10 Hearthkin Warriors, one set of Brockhair Thunderkin, and then one more kit in the box of some sort or another. If I had to guess, maybe the Ironhair Hearthguard, so the champion's got something to lead, but Games Workshop do occasionally make box sets where the HQs can't join anything. If that's accurate, I feel like it probably wouldn't be a terrible successor to this one. If it is Hearthguard, then it might be slightly more points in the box, and both the Pioneers and the Brockhair Thunderkin are fairly big chunky models. Let me know whether you'd rate it better or worse if that does turn out to be the case. Before we move on, I'll just give a quick shout out to today's video sponsor in Baron of Dice. They're a high quality themed dice maker based in the USA, and they wanted to share the fact that they've got a big anniversary sale on with 15% off across their range if you did want some unusually fancy faction specific dice at a lower price than they normally sell them. Their speciality is a whole bunch of faction related dice that could be used to represent a good amount of chapters, legions or different wargaming armies out there, plenty of which could apply to Warhammer 40k. I can vouch for the dice being well made and good quality. I was impressed by the channel merch ones that he made for Auspex Tactics. Most of them have a choice between rounded corners and squared corners depending on which ones you'd like there. Price wise, I believe they're usually around about $33 or £29, and that gets a set of 25 dice in a carry case, and as mentioned with their sale at the moment they've got that code Baron for 15% off. The sale ends on the 25th, so not too much longer to go on that one. As mentioned, they've also got the Auspex Tactics dice as well. I'm certainly very impressed with these ones, and can be one option to support the channel if you like some snazzy dice with the logo on. In any case, thank you to them for sponsoring this one. Feel free to check out the website below if you want to have a browse over their range, and be sure to use that code if you're picking up anything in the next day or two. Next up, I was certainly interested to take a look at Warhammer Skulls, the video game showcase reveal show that they did. After much rejigging of preview shows, they cancelled their one in the Dallas Open for tonight, then scheduled their Heresy one for next week, and then rearranged that to turn up Friday night in the UK, and instead decided to air their video game showcase on Thursday in place of the Dallas one. It fell well enough that I was able to catch the stream, and basically it's a showcase of all the Warhammer video games that they have, most of the major titles having at least some content coming out, either minor new cosmetic things, some freebies and giveaways, sales on old titles with some big discounts compared with normal, and a few games have sort of free-to-play windows for a few days on Steam I think, so you could try them out for a few days and see if you like them enough to make a purchase. The stream was basically a clipped together section of different segments. A lot of the major titles showcased something or other, and to be honest it might have been nice to hear a bit more discussion around those. There was quite a lot of sort of filler things, lots of mobile games showcasing new content, and quite a lot of ads for sort of Warhammer video game style merch like that DK book and Displate, or lots of peripheral 40k things. One thing that didn't turn up that some people were speculating was a Warhammer 40k Total War game. There was a reveal for the Warhammer 3 Total War, with some new content for that, but nothing for the grim darkness of the far future on that front. If something like that turned up, I'd certainly be interested to check that one out myself. For a roundup of some of the more major reveals, there was a Dark Heresy one, made by the people who did the Rogue Trader video game that was broadly pretty well received. That's got a pretty awesome trailer with an Inquisitor in it. Boltgun 2 was announced, the fast-moving arcade-style shooter that was pretty popular, and that's got its second edition coming out in 2026. There's also a sequel for that Mechanicus game in the works. Again, that was quite well received, and that's coming out in 2026 too, featuring the Leagues of Votann as a faction. I guess all sorts of technological foes fighting each other between them, Necrons and Mechanicus. In Darktide, looks like there's a new class, and you can play as an RBTs, and the Space Marine game's got a couple of teasers. There's some sort of big defense siege mode coming for Space Marine 2, and then the original Space Marine game gets a remastered edition with some slightly sharpened up graphics. One of the things that people were most hyped for was Dawn of War, and I did have a bit of a sneaking suspicion that it might be a remastered Dawn of War title as opposed to a new one. We knew something was coming for Dawn of War due to that miniature box game being leaked, and it does seem that it's basically the old versions of the game sort of rebuilt on a 64-bit platform apparently. Fairly nicely sharpened up graphics, though what's interesting is that it's all 4 titles done at once, which is an absolute mountain of content to go through if you wanted to play through all those again. They're certainly games that I enjoyed at the time. I'm sure it must have taken an enormous amount of work to make happen, and it sounds like they're trying to appeal to the modding community as well, trying to make the game accessible for that. Though I must admit I've seen a few reactions to say that the textures don't look crazily different to the original. They feel like they are broadly improved a little bit, but maybe not by quite as much as some remasters that have happened recently. Overall, definitely not nothing, and we're cool to see a lot of people check that out. Maybe not quite as exciting as a reboot of the franchise with Dawn of War 4 might have been though. Otherwise, they did show off an official reveal of the Dawn of War Onslaught box set, As mentioned, we'd seen that leaked through a very blurry picture. Looks like we've got a game board with a bunch of Space Marines wandering around it. So I feel like probably for 40k collectors, the biggest draw might be the miniatures. As we've seen from this blurry leak, the sprue inside it is actually quite an interesting one, in the one with the Judas-ear, Chaplain, the Eradicators and Blade Guard. The one that originally came out in the Indomitors box is now sold as the Honoured of the Chapter. It's quite an expensive kit that's generally online only, typically £100 or $168, so if this box set winds up being less than that, it could represent a good deal. As per some of these previously, it looks like it's going to be sold via Target and Barnes & Noble in the USA, so it will probably be more widely available there. I'm not sure if it will have a bit more of a worldwide release like some of these have done. Next up, I thought it was worth addressing one major correction from my Space Wolf review video, and basically one of the detachments that I thought had quite a weak detachment rule. I skimmed over the fact that there was a second trigger clause for it that actually does make it significantly better and much easier to activate. This detachment is called the Saga of the Hunter, and the idea of it is basically the Space Wolves working in tandem to pick the enemy apart in glorious close combat. And if you get to trigger the detachment rule, then you get a +1 to hit, going up to a +1 to hit and wound if you happen to have killed 3 units in melee already in a Strike Force game. There's actually 2 ways to trigger it, as I'd read before. If you make a melee attack with a Space Wolves unit that targets an enemy unit that's in engagement range with both them and another friendly Adeptus Astartes unit, then you can get the +1 to hit and things, which immediately stood out to me as being pretty restrictive and needing to commit 2 units to one enemy just to get your detachment rule going off. That didn't seem like the most unhelpful thing in the world. You could do it with things like Fenrisian Wolves. What I missed though while I was trying to get my head around the keywords and the Adeptus Astartes thing is there's a completely separate and much easier way to trigger it, and you basically also get the +1 to hit if the Space Wolves unit that you're attacking with contains more models than the enemy unit. So say for example if you've got a 10 strong squad of Grey Hunters and they're attacking a 5-man squad of Chaos Marines in melee, they'll get the +1 to hit without having to coordinate with something else. Obviously apologies for misreading that, it's a bit annoying to misread a detachment rule like that that's quite important for how the army functions, particularly as this one does make it significantly better. Could be very nice for any of the masked up Grey Hunters or Bloodclaw style units, and it means that this will usually trigger if you're going in with a squad against a monster or vehicle. It will just trigger a lot of times incidentally, maybe if you're fighting against enemy elites or small depleted squads of foes. Overall definitely seems more interesting for the detachment in my mind, competing far better with the others, and the other support it has is quite nice. A few technical fight phase tricks like boosted consolidations, fallback and charge and things like that. If you're going to be playing Space Wolves, let me know which of the detachments appeal the most to you. I'll be interested to hear down in the comments based on first impressions. Next up, I thought we'd take a look at the next Heresy Hearsay things. Games Workshop still seem to be keeping the teasers flowing, with a bunch more parts revealed from the new Saturnine box set, with the big reveal for that one scheduled at 7 PM British time. Times listed around the world here. It'll mean it's somewhere between 11 AM and 2 PM in the USA and Canada. I'll be aiming to catch this one and round up the reveals after. A few of the previews are pretty interesting though. One of the things that we hadn't seen before properly was Disintegration weapons, which is something that we haven't seen loads and loads of in 40k or Heresy. Basically a new class of special weapons pretty much, and supposedly a really rare class of weaponry in the Heresy. There haven't really been too many models to represent them. For example, this Imperial Space Marine was armed with a combi disintegrator thing, this one being a throwback to one of the oldest Space Marines in existence. It looks like in that Saturnine box set though, there's 2 sets of disintegrator weapons included as upgrades for the tactical legionaries if you want. Maybe it does feel a bit unusual that they're supposed to be a rare and exotic weapon class, and then due to being in the new big box set, seems they're likely going to be everywhere in a new edition of Horus Heresy, with a lot of people jumping into the game, presumably getting that box and assembling them. They probably work differently, but sound at least somewhat superficially similar to things like Necron Gauss weapons, dissolving the foe at a molecular level, and supposedly were far more common in the era of the Dark Age of technology. Otherwise, for things that they teased, they also had this single-headed Aquila that looks like it belongs on the front of the Saturnine Terminators. Apparently this represents the forces of the Emperor before the alliance between the Imperium and Mars, so the Eagles just got the one head rather than the 2. And I guess if they are going with Saturnine Terminators being the big shoulder pad version 1, these guys might be supposed to be representing Terminator armor from the earliest days of the Great Crusade, rather than some timelines that had it put as a type of Terminator armor that was similar to the Indomitors pattern that's used in 40k. As well as the artwork of the Aquila, also looks like there's a bit of Terminator armor here too. Almost looks like a bit of a cushioned interior there. Maybe that's on show if you assemble it with a bare head as opposed to a helmeted head or something like that, I'm not sure. But interesting to see some of the inside of Terminator armor. Otherwise, for small reveals, there's a closer look at this Legion Centurion's pet servo skull. Another bit that looks like a power plant of something, probably either the Terminators or the Dreadnought. I could probably work that out if I thought about it a bit harder, but maybe not really the most exciting bit in the world. I guess could be the autocannon turret as well for all I know. There's what looks like the base of that Arachnus quad autocannon emplacement, and then a small teaser of someone's hand. Looks like you can assemble the Saturnine Praetor either with a pointy finger or a balled fist. In any case, we'll be cool to get some better pictures of the full box set and any other Heresy related reveals they decide to showcase for us. I look forward to covering that at the time. There's still maybe a bit of a shame that it leaked out so early from someone selling them, even if it does give Heresy players a better idea of what to expect. Otherwise, just for a couple of other things, the Rumour Engine this week was all rather non-specific. I had people speculating everything between a stick as a sort of shepherd's crook type thing to some sort of spiny part of a creature. Not really too sure myself. I saw someone speculating on Reddit that it might look like this bit on the top left of the Chaos Spawn sprue. I suppose not impossible, and it does look kind of similar, but on the other hand, I'd still put it more likely to be something from the fantasy setting though. And finally, I thought I'd just mention the fact that the Primal Hounds bits, with the sort of Space Wolf upgrade bits from Great Eye Studio, are on sale in the USA at the moment. Wargame Portal can do them as print on demand, and I was very impressed by the quality of the prints that I got sent from them. I've got some of the nice Crimson Lord ones with the sort of Wings jump pack upgrades that could be used for the Sanguinary Guard, so I'd vouch for the quality of the resin. In any case, these guys have some pretty cool stuff, including big sets of ancient armour, some various custom heads and shoulder pads and bits, lots of exciting weapons and shields and things. Could be another way to add a bit more Fenridian theme to your armies out there, to go alongside any armies that you might be building of the rather spectacular new kits. I suspect Games Workshop might show off a Space Wolves upgrade sprue at some point. Blood Angels, Dark Angels and Black Templars all got a big one. Maybe we'll find out about it on a Monday reveal or something. In any case, check out Wargame Portal, link down in the video description if you want 25% off the Primal Hound bits. Anything bought through them helps to support Auspex Tactics as per normal. They're pretty cheap comparatively in the USA. Otherwise, for options to get them, there's the STLs from the creators themselves on My Mini Factory, and only games which are linked below can post them to the rest of the world too. In any case, I'll leave that there for now. Let me know what you make of the potential Russ teaser, Leagues of Votann Combat Patrol possibilities, the Scores preview and more. I look forward to hearing all your takes down in the comments as always. A big thank you to Baron of Dice for sponsoring the video. Feel free to check out their anniversary sale link down in the video description if you'd like to. They've certainly got a whole bunch of fun faction specific dice. If you've enjoyed the video, then feel free to subscribe to Auspex Tactics. I'll certainly keep the regular 40k videos coming, with new ones out just about every day. I'll certainly aim to keep on top of Games Workshop's news, rumours and reveals. I guess the next major ones will be tomorrow when we get the Saturnine preview. Check out all the stuff down in the video description if you'd like to help support. The Patreon page is the most direct way and gets things like the giveaways and occasional videos early. In any case though, an enormous thank you for listening, and I'll hope to see you guys next time.